We're going to begin today a series on the book of Zechariah. As in the introduction, I made mention of the fact that I'm one of those people that do not believe there's anything minor about the minor prophets. They are just rich, they're full, they're challenging. There is a wealth of information and prophetic information in the minor prophets. Zechariah is certainly no exception. So what we're going to do in our study of the book of Zechariah is we're going to study the book thematically. The very first thing that I want us to notice is the promise of Zechariah of Yahweh's return to Zion. Now, the theme of the exaltation and the restoration of Zion is one of the richest, most significant of all of Messianic motifs. In Zechariah, we find Yahweh's promise to return to to return to Zion. Notice Zechariah chapter 1, verse 16. I am returning to Jerusalem with mercy. My house shall be built in it, and a surveyor's line shall be stretched out over Jerusalem. Now, here is Yahweh's promise to return to Jerusalem. In chapter 2, verse 10, he continues this prophecy, and he says, Sing, O and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming, I will dwell in your midst. Now, first of all, I think we have to see this as a prediction of the return from Babylonian captivity, because back in chapter 1, it specifically mentions the return after the 70 years. It mentions the return from Babylon. So there is a primary and a typological application of the return from the Babylonian captivity, the rebuilding of the temple, Yahweh's presence being with them once again. But pretty clearly there's also a greater, as I said, a typological application of that return, what is known as a sensus priori, a greater meaning beyond that immediate meaning, and that is Yahweh's return through Messiah. This is the coming of the Lord. Now, in order to fully understand this, we have to understand, first of all, how did Yahweh leave? He says he was going to return. How did he leave? Well, the answer is found when we look at the story of the 10 northern tribes. The Lord said, Hosea chapter 5, verse 15, I will depart and return to my place. Well, how had Yahweh been there so that he could depart and go back to his place? Because this is the exact same identical kind of departure in view, because in Ezekiel chapter 10, Ezekiel saw the glory of the Lord ascend off of the temple. The Lord left. Now, it's pretty obvious, is it not, that Yahweh had not departed biologically, physically, bodily. It just wasn't happening. It just didn't happen. Yahweh was with them covenantally through his presence among them. That's what Ezekiel 10 is all about. Here in Zechariah, the Lord was promising that the time was coming in which he would return to Zion. Well, if he never left physically, bodily, biologically, then the return was not going to be a physical, bodily return to Zion. So right here at the very first of the book, if and when we look closely at the language and the context of how Yahweh had actually, number one, been with them in the past, number two, how he had departed from them, and number three, therefore, how he was going to return to Zion. He was going to return through his covenantal blessings, his covenantal presence. There is no promise here of a physical, bodily return of Yahweh or of Jesus. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you on the flip side.